I'm Ken Gammerman, and it's my great privilege to enthusiastically endorse the re-election of Matt Hoey and Mike Ayles, two outstanding members of our Board of Finance who have made impressive contributions to assuring the financial health and the steady growth of our town in ways that have met with the approval of a large majority of our voters. In Mike's case, for two terms, 8 years, in Matt's case, for 6 terms or 24 years. As chairman, Matt has provided years of creative leadership, encouraging a growing spirit of bipartisanship within the board and creating the mechanisms for effective cooperation with both the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Education. Virtually all of the combined annual budgets submitted by the board, not all of them, but virtually all, have been approved by most of our neighbors. Matt's led the way in developing needed facilities in the town while supporting the growth of many school programs, capped by the opening of our new Guilford High School. His public career in Guilford stands as a model of civic achievement. Over the past few years, Mike Ayles has been an important presence on the board. He has served as our liaison to the Standing Building Committee, always providing me with answers to difficult questions.
That's right.
And a key member of the High School Building Committee. He's almost been a walking liaison between the 3 important boards, commissions, and committees. And he's utilized his skills as a professional architect to monitor a broad range of projects to the benefit of our taxpayers. As a true son of Guilford, Mike is thoroughly dedicated to the welfare of our town, and all of us will fully benefit by his re-election to the board. I'm going to start our discussion by raising a couple of general questions that I'd like you first, Mike, to address, and then Matt, you chime in. What has been your proudest achievement on the board over these 8 years?
Well, that is it's a pretty easy question for me, but I'd like to expand upon it a little bit. I think it's the passing of the high school, of course. Most people in the town, I think, know me or got to know me very well. If I wasn't Riley, Cameron, or Parker's dad,
Right.
I became the face of the high school pre-referendum effort. That, by far, is the proudest achievement that I've had. But I think, that was in the last term, really at the end of the last term, 2010 and into 11. In the last term, I think it's really keeping the Board of Finance knowledgeable about capital projects that are going on in town. The building committee, both the high school and the standing building committee, have been fantastic to work with, very open to communication, questions, especially that Ken, you have, but also the rest of the board. So I really think it's keeping everyone in the loop on what's going on with all of the capital projects and the expenditures and how they're used. There's words that I'm sure a lot of the Board of Finance members, and for that matter, Board of Selectmen and Board of Education at times, are not really familiar with. And to be able to translate a lot of that is very is a really good feeling to be able to do that.
And it's
It's
comforting for our board.
it's
and
helpful.
Reassuring.
Yeah.
Reassuring.
It certainly is.
Matt, you're going to have to dig deep
Dig
into
deep.
your long experience to come up with your single greatest achievement.
Well, I think in a simple way, just being able to serve the community, to serve my citizens, my friends, my neighbors in this community, in a role that is as significant as it has been for the past 24 years, the last 22 years as chair. But beyond that, I think what I would consider my biggest achievement or accomplishment is the validation of the way I have approached my role, what we do. I think the validation has come in a variety of ways. People I meet in the grocery store, people I meet at the post office, people I meet at the marketplace, who provide the kind of feedback, both positive and negative feedback. But nonetheless, most people have an appreciation for what the Board of Finance has been able to accomplish over time. And my belief that the role is stewardship, that we are responsible for maintaining the character, the quality of life, and all of the services that our citizens, taxpayers, children have come to expect from our community. So I think that translates to a connection with voters. And what I mean by that is you referenced this earlier, most of the time our neighbors, our voters have approved the budgets that we've put forth. Right now we've approved 6 consecutive ones on the first ballot. Over the past 22 years, and I believe the numbers, we've passed 18 of the 22 budgets that have come out while I was chair, and they were passed on the first referendum ballot. To me, that signifies the Board of Finance is in touch with the community, and it's mindful of what the community is looking for.
We've seen a lot of progress in the upgrading of town facilities. Of course, it's capped on the education side by the opening of this incredible new high school. And the question I have for both of you, and Matt, you can start on this one, is how have we been able to move forward with important priorities for town and school while yet respecting the ability of the taxpayers to support this?
Ken, I'll take that in 2 ways. One is the annual operating budget. And as you're well aware, perhaps not everybody in the audience, the Board of Finance works with the Board of Education and the Board of Selectmen in the development of their budgets. We are mindful of what the needs are to keep the services running that the schools require and the town requires in the form of the various departments, police department, fire department, park and rec, and we have a hand in the development of those budgets. And when we have a hand in that, I mean, it's an interactive process. We hear what the needs are, we hear what the wants are, we hear what the must-haves are, we hear what the nice-to-haves are, and we provide input in that process. So it is not just the March meetings when we set the budget. It's the December meetings, it's the January meetings where we work with them to keep control of the spending. On the capital side, as you're well aware, this board has been intimately involved with a 5-year capital project plan that the Board of Selectmen puts together, as well as the plan that the Board of Education puts together. I think it would be fair to say that at one point everybody wanted all their projects done now. But we have implemented a process where we prioritize projects over a 5-year period, and it's a rolling 5-year period, it's always a new one, and we fit those in where they're appropriate so that it doesn't significantly impact the taxes that our citizens have to pay.
Mike, how would you respond to that?
I'm going to take what you just said and summarize it. Consensus.
Right.
And I'm going to take it one step further. Not to be too general, but this is not, the needs of the town are not are decided by 7 elected officials on the Board of Finance, 5 on Selectmen, 9 on Board of Ed. It's not just elected officials. The amount of work that goes in, let's see, it's October 12th.
Right.
So they're already starting. All the department heads, all of the commissions, all of the boards, they're all ready going forward with trying to put their budgets together. We get it in December. We start looking at it. Actually, we start looking in January, but we have meetings
with the Board
in
of Ed
December
in
with the Board of Ed.
December.
Exactly, that you run. Mm-hmm. And there is an incredible amount of input that goes in. This is not something that we need to feel that we have to micromanage. There are hundreds of people. I actually just told this to somebody yesterday that I was talking to. There are hundreds of people that are involved in putting a budget together.
Oh, yeah.
This is not elected officials. This is not just the Board of Ed. This is not just, the selectmen or first selectman Mazur. It's everybody. And what we get is the benefit of Matt's leadership for all these years, your leadership as the subcommittee member with the Board of Ed, to collaborate and come to consensus with everyone. I mean, there's not a lot of animosity putting these budgets together. there may be exactly what Matt said, is there may be projects that people want in there. But I think it's, at the end of the day, everyone's, for the most part, that put these budgets together, they're happy with what goes forward. And that's why we're usually, you know, we look at it, we've already had a lot of our input. We don't need to grandstand in front of the public on TV and say, you know, cut 100,000, cut $1 million out. We've been doing that for at least 3 months, if not more.
So, how would you respond to the those people who say the Board of Finance should be a severe check on the other two elected boards, keeping them in line?
Well, first of all, they're big boys and girls. They're pretty good at what they're doing. They've been doing it for a while. Both parties are working very bipartisan, in a very bipartisan way. I don't think there's really a need to feel that we have to be that check and balance. I mean, we should if we're getting the budget in March. So I'm somewhat repeating what I just said.
Mm-hmm.
But we've been involved in the process for a very long time. And also for the amount of leadership that has been on all of the boards now. For the most part, I mean, I don't want to do any math and look at terms and who's been on what for so long, but we all have a very good understanding of what the community needs, what they want. We've been doing this for a while. So
Matt,
to have that experience, I think, is very helpful.
Matt, how would you respond to the thing, how would you describe this aura of bipartisanship and nonpartisanship?
Well, yeah, I want to sort of wrap that answer into a comment or two on what Mike had said. And I've read the charter more times than I should have. The charter does not say that the Board of Finance is supposed to cut the budgets that come from the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Education. You can't find that in the charter. Is the Board of Finance a backstop? Yes, it is. But there are ways to do that. And I think Mike just touched a little bit on how we do it. I've talked ad infinitum when given the opportunity that we do work in a collaborative manner. I find it interesting that very often during campaigns, people posture, they have positions. They're on this side of the aisle, they're on that side of the aisle. Governing is a different thing. Once you have the responsibility to take care of the top 5% of our community in terms of socioeconomic status, the bottom 5% or the bottom 10%, and what those in the vast middle want as well, it changes. You find out that there are things like contracts in place that you can't just cut willy-nilly. You find out that there's a cost of living increase on the spending items that a community does, that the town does and a school does, that are a little bit different than the household spending budget. So just saying we're not spending any more money doesn't work unless you're willing to say this is what we are not going to do as a result of not spending any more money. And I think it's rare when that posturing comes up at Board of Finance meetings. It happens occasionally, but I want to reiterate that I think in the last four budgets, it's been 6-1, 4 Democrats voting for the budget, 2 Republicans voting for the budget, 1 voting against it, and that's certainly his, that individual's right to do so. Most of the budgets that come from the Board of Education come to us unanimously, which means the other elected officials agree. And the Board of Selectmen, it's usually 4-1, sometimes 5-0 in terms of the budgets that put before us. The work we do collectively, as we talked about with the budget hearings, the departmental hearings, the subcommittee work with the Board of Education, there's no Democrats, no Republicans in that room. There are people who are concerned about our community and who have volunteered their time, energy, and talents, like Mike, to bring this community to where it needs to go.
There is a lot of consideration, and I think possibly some misinformation around regarding something called the unassigned fund balance.
It's now undesignated fund balance.
Undesignated,
Unassigned,
undesignated fund
It's
balance.
Yes.
And
Rainy
the fact is that we have doubled the fund balance over the last few years,
Right.
and received in the wake of that
Right.
AAA bond rating, which has certainly helped us in the school construction
It has.
process.
Right.
How do you describe, Matt, you want
Yeah,
to take that first?
let me take that. Ken,
The undesignated fund balance.
the undesignated fund balance is exactly as what Mike has just said. It's a rainy day fund. It's our savings account. And it's there for a reason. And it is primarily there for the reason that when a community is faced with significant budgetary pressures, as we were 6-7 years ago when the country was in the middle of what some might can call not the Great Depression, but the biggest depression since the Great Depression. There were revenue shortfalls. There were pressures on us that that we could not meet without significant tax increases. And I'm going to say that the use of fund balance predated my time on the Board of Finance. That's Republican administrations on the Board of Finance, the Board of Selectmen, Democratic administrations on the Board of Finance, and the Board of Selectmen. It was a common practice. We used it appropriately when we used it. It got to a point where it was no longer practical to use it. At that point, in the spirit of bipartisanship, I remember a meeting at Adams Middle School band room with all three boards, and we weren't talking about what we weren't posturing. We were talking about what needed to be done. A plan needed to be put in place. A plan was put in place to stop using fund balance, which meant that very next year, a pretty significant tax increase. All right. We also made some other changes. We started changing the estimates on some of our revenues downward because they were pretty aggressive. Interest income, for instance. At one point, this community used to get about $800,000 a year in interest income from the money sitting in our bank accounts. Now, we're down to $25,000 to $50,000.
Mm-hmm.
So there were a series of events that forced us into a position where we needed to take advantage of the resources we had, the rainy day fund. However, since 2008, I believe it is, 2009 probably, when we put a plan in place, we've slowly grown the undesignated fund balance. But I want to caution, that is taxpayer money. We have raised that money through taxes. So that is money that is either not spent by the departments or excess revenues over what we had projected. So that money is taxpayer money, and there's some question. Right now it's at 8%, which is more than healthy given the bond rating agencies. 8% is very good.
And
Mike?
let me tag on to that. You know, the short-term look at the rainy day fund, right? As you just alluded to, it was used appropriately. When you look back 4 or 5 years, and we put the policy in place, which was about 5 years ago, we got to that 2.5% level. We knew it was low, but we also knew what was right around the corner. And that's the long-term strategic planning of, well, you put this in place, in 5 years we have a rainy day fund. We have this unassigned fund balance that we can build back up. Now the bonding companies look at it when we have a $92 million project that we need to finance. That has made all the difference in the world. I don't know the exact number, but I know it's in the millions that we have saved from what we had said in the referendum in 2011 of what the total amount was going to be because of interest, which I think we had planned on 4%.
4% interest rate.
So that was one thing, but the other point was what the bonding agencies were going to say, and now we've got the highest we've had.
Yeah.
So we looked at it. We didn't look at it 5 years ago to say, we got to build it back up for, just because it's dangerously low. We built it back up because we knew 5 years down the road we were going to have this project. We knew something was going to happen. Our schools could not stay the way they were.
Mike, what do you see as the greatest challenge in the next 4 years, should you be elected, which I assume you will be?
Yeah, this was a question that was one of the Guilford Courier questions. Yeah,
Was it?
I had a couple, but I'm gonna focus a little bit on the fact that, this was something I said a couple months ago. there's the facilities that we've talked about, the school facilities. And we know we've got the high school, but at some point, and it's happening right now as we speak, the high school project is over in terms of the newness of it. Yes, it's a great high school, but in another year, another 2 years, 3 years, it's going to be just another high school. We will not have to put maintenance in that school. That was the reason why we built it new. I mean, when I say maintenance, I don't mean like capital expenditure, operational, major costs. We have 6 other schools. They're not getting any younger. We have municipal buildings that are not getting any younger. I want to take one example. People still look at the police station as being new, right? That building is 20 yeyears old.
And
that
the
building,
community center.
And the community center. And both of those buildings just had major infrastructure on their HVAC, on heating, ventilation, their systems. So I think the challenge is we've got one great big flagship new building, and I could count more than these fingers. I'll have to use toes. All the other buildings that we have to take care of.
Matt, what do you see as the great challenge for the next 4 years?
I think the biggest challenge we have is living up to the expectations of the community. We have excellent financial health in Guilford through the collective work of the 3 boards. Maintaining that is the challenge, because there will be, as Mike said, pressures for other services, pressures for other capital projects that come along because buildings age, things need to be updated. So I think continuing to deliver the level of services that our citizens expect, enjoy, and deserve while maintaining the financial health. And when I say financial health, I mean keeping a fund balance where it should be, and also passing along the lowest tax increases we can, the more modest tax increases, so that people are happy to call Guilford the place where they live.
And added to that is the sense that so many groups in this town, this is a very active town, probably the greatest sense of volunteerism of any community in the state. I'd match it up there. I think there are more people involved. And when you have these kinds of creative, aggressively proactive people, they're going to want more things.
Exactly.
And it's going to fall to us to measure that against the capacity to afford it.
I want to just real quick to what Matt said. We all, we talk about financial health and stability, and things are good now. But as I know in the construction industry, it's cyclical.
Yes, it is.
So to say that we're going to be like this for 5 to 10 to 15 years is not practical. So one of the challenges I also think, just to add a second one very quick, just to piggyback off what you said, is to make sure that in 3 to 5 years, hopefully more, that we're in a very good position, that we're planning for it, that we're looking ahead, because this is going to turn around again. So we need to make sure we have the fund balance. We need to make sure the facilities have a plan. We need to make sure the capital plans are, everything ages, and you have to keep that level.
I think you've addressed many of the questions that the people are interested in and that our community wanted to hear. Through very wise leadership and the judicial crafting of our annual budgets, Matt and Mike have led the way over the past 4 years in doubling the unassigned fund balance to 8%, creating low bonding rates, and helping Guilford realize a AAA bond rating. Together, they've made impressive contributions to the financial health of our community. Both deserve our support for continued service on the Board of Finance, and I would hope that you would join me in supporting them on November 3rd for another well-deserved 4-year term on our board. Thank you so much for being with us today, and we'll look forward to seeing you on Election Day.